Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of Art Side of Life, where I chat with inspiring artists and create various art-related videos. My name is Eva and my guest today is Pernille Oerum, and in this episode you will learn about her art process and why it's important to get feedback for your art early on to progress and improve.
Take it easy. It's gonna work out. I was always afraid that I wasn't good enough, and I didn't want to share my things until they were completely done. And then if somebody criticized them, I just didn't want to hear it. And that's what I learned from doing 6 months of life drawing, was that show it as soon as you can to somebody else and take in the criticism that they have.
Pernille is a freelance visual developer, illustrator, and character designer, currently located in Copenhagen, Denmark. She studied character animation at Animation Workshop in Viborg, Denmark, and later switched her focus to be a character designer. Her clients include Disney, Warner Brothers, Mattel, and Nickelodeon. She was also a lead character designer on DC superhero Girls. So please welcome Pernille Oerum, and let's get to the interview. So welcome everyone to the next episode of Art Side of Life, and I'm super happy to have Pernille here. Hi!
Hi!
I'm super happy that you took time off and joined us here to share your artistic journey.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Super awesome. And let's just dive in right away maybe to your background, and maybe you can share some either fun stories from your childhood, how you were creative, maybe, like drawing on the wall, or which were kind of your creative outlets maybe which influence you.
Well, I started out like a lot of people my age watching Disney movies. I saw The Little Mermaid when I was like 3 or 4, and that definitely defined who I am now and what I wanted to do. I remember seeing that and I was like, I want to do that. I didn't know what it was, but later I found out that it was animation and I wanted to be an animator. So I just kept like freezing the VHS tape and drawing after that and learning how to draw by it like that. So yeah, that was a big influence and just, has kept on all the way through.
And who helped you kind of define your goals that you want to do, like either characters in animation, because there are like so many different aspects of art you can do. Like, did you have a mentor or someone showed you like, by the way, you can do this?
Well, actually, most of it I discovered on my own. I lived in a small town. There wasn't a lot of people who were there to help me and guide my way. My dad was a big help because he really helped me and pushed me in the direction that I wanted to go. But I didn't have a certain mentor like that until later on, but it was more for painting. I found a friend who was also a big fan of everything geeky, and he was a painter, so he taught me about colors and stuff. So no, for being a character animator, there hasn't really been anything other than that's what I really liked. I like the acting part of it. I like the visual of a character and exploring people to see characters like that. So,
and how did you choose the education? Like how to the school or what to study online? Because as well, like someone advised you to like, okay, you should go to this school or.
I thought I had to go to the States to learn animation, but I found out in about 8th grade that about half an hour away from where I lived, there was one of the best animation schools in Europe at all, called the Animation Workshop. So I did an intern there in 8th grade, and I went straight there after high school. So it was very, very fortunate that it was right, in the back door. But I did search out, like I knew I wanted to do animation, and I knew I had to go to a school for it. But I was very surprised to find out that there was one right next to where I lived. And
yeah. It's the one in Viborg, or
yes,
this one.
The Animation Workshop, yeah.
Exactly, because actually a lot of my colleagues from Lego as well, they went there as well to that school, and it's like kind of almost middle of nowhere, but then it also had a lot of cool guests, right, from US as well, different teachers.
Yeah, it's a great school because it is so remote from everything else. So all you do there is just hang around with people who are interested in what you're interested in, and you just spend all your time being creative, doing stuff, doing workshops in the evening, learning improv, if that's what you like to do. And all the teachers are there for a short amount of time, so none of them are really tired in the business. They're more in tune with what's happening, and they're just there for a small break and to teach other people what they know and then back to work. So there's always this good energy.
And you did it as well, that workshop there, right, recently?
Well, it was more like what to do when you graduate kind of class, just like a small lecture about the journey from being in animation school into being a freelancer, which is what I'm doing now.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, maybe you can give us like one advice or like one pinpoint kind of summary of your workshop.
Yeah, well, I think my main point was that putting yourself out there, putting stuff online was a really big thing for me. And also finding your style or like what you really like to do and just like keep at it and go with it, because then people will notice you, because consistency is also one of the things that people notice. If you make one good drawing in one style and another good drawing in another style, it's not really like they just hire you because you're good at drawing. But if you keep doing a certain style and you are really good at it, then they'll be like, okay, we'll need that, so we'll pick her for that.
And when you started your Instagram account, did you post like every day, or what was your kind of the strategy behind, like being visible on social media and consistent?
Yeah, well, consistency was definitely a big part of it. It wasn't a strategy to getting more followers or anything like that, but it was more like a challenge for myself. I found out they put something out called Sketch Dailies. Which was like a daily sketch challenge throughout the weekdays. And I just, I thought that was fun. And, you got likes from it because people saw that because they followed the dailies challenge. So it like kept you to the fire, and it made you wanted to draw more. So it was a help for a challenge that I posted for myself to see if I could draw every day. And then all of a sudden it became a habit, and now I can't help myself. Every time I see something, I want to draw it, and I keep posting every day now, and that's mostly for myself. So,
and did you give yourself some kind of constraints, like you want to do like specific theme, like mermaids, or something else, like every day different character, or kind of how did you define what to draw?
Yeah, well, the pushing was good for like mermaids. It was for mermaid and like sketch dailies. They had different topics, and in the beginning, it's very much within your comfort zone. If I had to draw Skeletor, I drew a female version of Skeletor because I'm more comfortable drawing women. Now I'm pushing myself more, and I try to define it more by what I want to draw, and then like learning how to draw that, instead of just making it more comfortable for my style. So. But definitely, make a list yourself, or find there are so many lists online. That's definitely a way of pushing yourself and trying to get it done.
Yeah, definitely. And so what helped you to progress the most to developing your art skills? Like maybe, how did you learn to observe and simplify? Of course, that's a broad question, but, like maybe something which like was your aha moment, like, oh, this really helps to improve.
Well, I think like every day has an aha moment of some sort. I really love looking at people's drawings that I like, and it keeps changing what I save. Right now I'm saving a lot of people who do things that are very simple, very flat coloring, and a lot of nice different colors. But it can be, like for me, it was drawing every day, and I drew a certain way. And then all of a sudden I saw something that looked really cool, like more abstract kind of drawing, and then you push towards that, and you keep it's still within my style. It's very unique. Like I have a very like signature style, so it's all within that, but it keep changing because I see something new, and exploring that is definitely like, so I keep having these small moments like, oh, drawing lips like that's pretty cool, and then the next 10 drawings I draw lips very graphically because I thought that was cool, and then I morph back into my own style. But I've had that put into my visual library, so I can use that like going ahead.
Yeah, definitely, because that's how you can develop your style when you study different artists or masters in the old time or from life, and then you, as you mentioned, like pick and choose like lips or eyes or whatever it is from the art style.
And I want to emphasize that I have been doing a lot of life drawing. I did a 6-month course where we did that every day. I do that often as well. You can't just copy other people's stylistic choices, because then it's just a copy. You have to like build your own sense of looking at something that's in real life and then deciphering into something that's graphical, if that's a style that you like. But you can look at how other people did it, but you just have to like do your own discoveries as well.
Exactly. Exactly, as you mentioned, because that will be my next question. Like, do you go for life drawing classes? Because of course, when you have a graphic style or simplification, you still need to know the skeleton behind it, the muscle structure, action line, or everything there.
Yes, and I don't do it enough. I just want to emphasize that. I don't think anybody does it enough. It's like anything else, you need to practice.
Yeah.
But
do you
I really
still
like
get
doing
a chance to do it now, or not anymore now?
No, there are some evening schools here where you can do it, and I keep signing up for them, but then, it's like everything else, life gets in the way.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
so how does your normal process look like now? Like maybe how do you do your, research or, thumbnails or like simple sketches? Maybe like what are your biggest bullet points, when you start a new project or new painting?
Well, for instance, today I've been working on a postcard that I'm doing for my old school. We usually do Valentine cards together. So they give me like a pitch for something that they want to do. They give me we want people dancing, or we want a different color scheme or something like that. But then I do like sketches of it, like 3 or 4 sketches, really rough, and then maybe a color thumbnail to define the colors that I'm looking for and send that to them. So it's very loose. I usually do that within like half an hour. I might have 3 or 4 sketches. If the idea is less clear, I might, make the more details to the sketch to define it more, because then I'm exploring it as well. Maybe you need an actual facial expression to get it done. And then you send it over, and they, can comment on it, and you can like scrap the whole thing. You haven't lost a lot by just sending it stuff like that. So, and then you finish it up. So I work really loose, like really, really loose. And that sometimes gets me into trouble, because people are like, that's not where I think. It's like, no, but can't you see? So I have to like tighten it up a bit, because I really work loose when I send stuff out.
And the sketches you do with the like pencil paper, or do you directly sketch in Photoshop?
Well, it's mostly Photoshop, also because then you can warp it, and you can, you can just sketch it and then figure out the composition afterwards, especially when it's for work. When it's for myself and it's just for, having fun, I do tend to do more on paper, because then if I like it, it's done. If customers might not always agree with what I like, so I have to change something that I wouldn't have changed if it was me. So,
like more back and forth, and then you do concepts which are not published, and you're like, oh, I worked on this so long.
yeah, for sure.
And when you do like the concepts, do you like to work more in like a black and white, kind of value structures, or you directly go to colors and just define the different color themes? I
like to do it directly in color, but in really rough thumbnails. But I don't do environmental stuff that much. If I did environmental, I might do a bit more light and dark before and grayscale. But for just characters, I normally have a visual. Maybe I pick like 3 or 4 colors that I really like to go with, and then I just have those on the side and pick from them. And with the simplicity with your characters, do you prefer to go with like a selection tool and then filling out the colors, or do you have like really clean brushes? I just go with brushes, and they're actually not that clean. I just zoom in a lot. So they actually it's all gouache brushes. I don't work with a round brush. It's just all gouache brushes. But I think my tendency is always to make it really clean. But I never really use the fill bucket or lasso tool or anything like that.
Because some people prefer to work with the lasso tool and then maybe define it with brushes afterwards, and
I might go in and, just like if I want to do a gradient for a selection, I might use the lasso tool for then. But main thing is just brush strokes and eraser.
And then you have some texture from the gouache brushes, as you mentioned, right? And when you mentioned like the different projects you are working on now, is there something you had like the biggest experience, which is the most memorable for you recently?
Well, not recently. A lot of the stuff that I've been doing recently is still secret. Can't talk about it. But I did like working on the DC Superhero Girls, which is I did the character design for that. Like 95% of the characters I designed, and the look of the show with the characters. It's one of those things where I look back on it now, it's such a big deal. But while I was working on it, I didn't really know it was such a big deal. So it was, I just had a lot of fun with the directors coming up with outfits and making them, cute and powerful. And the whole process of making that world was a lot of fun, especially with the main characters in the beginning and defining the whole show. That's definitely one of those like things I'm proud of, have worked on, and so much fun.
And the storytelling around it and everything, right?
It was so much fun.
So what is the most important part for you when you are designing the character? Is it like the background story of the character, the emotion, the colors or shape, or how do you go about that?
Well, I think it all goes together. I think the more I know about the characters, the better they're going to be. I've had like hard ones to design where it's just like, she's 8 years old and she's ethnic and she likes purple. I'm like, okay, who is she? Like, I don't know. Like, and what is ethnic? Like, it's one of those where like the more I know about the person, the attitude, how would that person react to something, the more I know about that, the more fun it is to me. So I like doing the sketching part the most, when you have to find out who the character is and like how she would act to different things, and making small like scenes with her. But most of the things that I work on don't have enough of a budget for me to explore like that. But when they do, it's definitely way more fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because as you mentioned, if someone likes to run in the mud, then you can design the mud on the shoes and have already something on the character.
Yeah, and something that defines it. But most of the time, I just have to do like one pose of the character and just standing, and it's still fine. But I love doing the exploratory sketches of who they are.
Yeah. And so how do you now combine your, income streams working with either is it the client work, which is the most part of your time, or is it like selling your art prints or your art book, or, what is like maybe the main focus on your like living?
Well, living is definitely still clients. I think about 80% of my time is spent with doing clients' work. Yeah. It's still it goes pretty well with my book and stuff, but I would never, that's always like a second income. I don't calculate that into like how much I need to work every year and stuff. It's just like, because sometimes I use the money that I get from that to create new stuff, so it's like a whole second unit.
So it goes back to business again.
It definitely does. Yeah.
And you did it with the Kickstarter, right?
Yes, I have 2 books. I've done both of them with Kickstarters. Besides that, I do have some like prints and like done small bags and wallets and stuff for when I go to expos and stuff, which is so much fun to make those. So
exactly. So how do you plan your time? Because you do so many things, like, as well as you mentioned, the conventions, client work, and books.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good at being in the office during normal work hours, and maybe a few hours more actually. I really like being here, but structuring back and forth when I do what is very loose. Some weeks I might work really hard on a client's project and not really have time to do my own stuff. But most of the time I do something for a client for like 3 or 4 hours, and then I send it out. And if I don't have anything else for a client, I might do my own drawing. So it's very fluid, and it's not something like, if I had a boss that I had to define my time for, it wouldn't work at all, because it's very like, it's all part of each other. I draw something on this and something on each other. I think I'm working on like 4 things right now. So I tend to have like more projects at the same time.
And you write down maybe the task at the beginning of the day, or like at the week, to look at the week, like what are the biggest chunks of your time?
I have two lists. I have one that's a day list, and then I have one that's like a week list where you have like dates written down and stuff. So which I every Monday I move the lists and see which one of them I had done and which one I didn't have done. So it's a lot of lists and email communication and stuff to get things to work together. So as long as I don't have anybody hired here or anything, it's all working out. But it's definitely just, I'm the only one who knows what's happening.
And then you put the constraints for yourself, like how long can you work on the artwork, or when you work with the clients, then you have like different constraints. So maybe how much time do you put also aside when you work on your own art and compared to the client work?
Yeah, well, I try to be really hard, because sometimes it's also, if somebody doesn't have a big budget, I might be able to solve it, but not to a complete. You'll be like, we can do it like this, but then it'll be cheaper. But then I also have to stick to that, and sometimes that's harder. If I just did 2 more hours, it would be better, but that's not in the agreement. And having those restraints is really hard. But also necessary, I think, because otherwise you're going to run yourself to the ground. So if you agreed on something, if somebody's like, I have 10 hours, I can pay you 10 hours, and like, don't go beyond those 10 hours, because just, make sure that you be like, leave time in the end to have backs and forths, because there's always going to be backs and forths, and take like take care of yourself when you do
exactly.
it.
You need to have like some time off, and do you take like weekends off, or do you work the whole week, or how do you kind of recharge?
I try to take the weekend off. I'm seldomly here during the weekends, and I don't have a computer at home, so I can't really work from home. Yes, I mostly take them off. It depends on the project. Sometimes I have a project that's really, really tough and I really want to get it done right. So I would come in here, but I try not to book the weekends. They're more like a buffer. But I am in a space right now where I'm both allowing myself to take time off, but I'm also not using the weekends.
Exactly. And what would you suggest the young or starting artists, when you mentioned like either the hourly rate is better, or like charging per project, or per day, or what would you suggest them to like try out?
Well, I have a day rate, and then it becomes cheaper if I go for a week. And if they hire me more than 1 week, like maybe a month, then it also has a decrease. And if they want me for half a day, like I don't work in hours really, I work more in days, half days and weeks. I think those are like my price ranges. That's a good way for me to keep a track of what things cost when you, and also if you give people a discount, if you think, sometimes some people come over with a project that seems really cool and it feels like something that I could grow working on it, and it would really be something good for me. But they don't have the same amount of money that I would usually charge. Then you can negotiate with them and be like, this is what I would take to do this, but because I get this and this and this out of it, I am willing to give you this discount. And then they'll also know, like, so if you know what you usually charge, it's easier for you to like give discounts, for instance.
So you can also see like what is something which can contribute to your either the portfolio or the growth, right, as you mentioned.
Or something that's just fun. Sometimes it's just fun to go over projects that's really just fun to do, because doing freelance is really, really hard, because you take a project and you think this is going to be fun, I know exactly how I'm going to do it, you do it, and then the client comes in with notes on it that you don't agree on, and then it's just gets harder for every note that comes in. So you have to be prepared for that. It's harder than you think, especially when you're sitting on your own, and you're just sitting there and think better. And sometimes like what they want you to change makes the product better for them, but it's still a hard process to go through every day.
Exactly, because and then you think about like, okay, there will be like one revision included or something like that, or this is how many characters you get per, I don't know, day or week.
I do that too. I always also, if it's a character, it'd be like might take 5 days to make this one character, but then I can do 3 sketches. You can revise the sketches. I'll do another sketch. You revise those. Then I do a thumbnail. You revise that, and then I go into final, and you can't do anything more than that. That's usually how I do it, but it's really, really hard to enforce it. So that's why you should leave time in the end, because there's always
something appears.
There's always something. Yes.
Exactly. And so when we talked about the recharging, is there something you do daily, which contributes to your success, like meditation or other stuff?
No, I wish there were. I'm a big podcast listener, so that gives me a lot, just to relax my head on the way I ride my bike to work. So that's always really, really nice. But other than that, it's just I wish I did more. Right now, it's really busy working. So I like to hang out with my friends and exercising, and I like to do color studies of nature, plein air. Painting, but that's still within the realm of of drawing. So it's like it goes hand in hand. And then I have found that freelancing has given me time to travel. So I have been traveling a lot. Last year I visited over 12 countries. So
awesome.
So that's how I get my inspiration right now.
So what was the most inspirational, like maybe the cultural shock somewhere, or what was the cool place you liked?
Well, I did Japan last year, so that's kind of, nothing beats that. That was an amazing trip. I took a lot of stuff home with me, inspiration-wise. I have so many pictures of signs. They have so many signs in cool colors.
Everything is so cute. It's crazy.
So I just, I have so much stuff with me that I use for reference now when I'm coloring, to try and make different color choices. yeah, so like Japan was definitely one of them.
Yeah, did you
Yeah.
manage to go also to some cafes like Alice in Wonderland Cafe or Robot Cafe on these places?
Yeah, I went to the robot
Or
yes,
yeah, I don't know what I should call it. Yeah, something like that.
the robot cafe. I went there to the show there, and I did some what's it called, like maid cafes.
Yeah, yeah, the
Just
outfits and
yeah,
stuff.
yes, very crazy, but so much fun. Like it was so much fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, I think I went 2 years ago, and then also the signs on the roads and everything is like cute. I'm like, how is
Yes.
this possible?
Yeah, and you're like in a strange little village, and all of it is like so, yeah, so different and designed. Everything is designed so
Yeah.
nicely. Yeah.
Exactly. And now, do you do like a mood boards from it afterwards, or you just pick and choose? Like what do you like with the colors?
Yeah, I don't do a mood board, but it like I would do for a project maybe. But if it's just for inspiration, I might be like, oh, I saw that sign. Where is that picture? And then
Yeah.
I take that out.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
did you have like a sketchbook with you as well when you did maybe notes or something, as you mentioned, like color
Oh, every
studies and
time I
stuff?
go, I have a sketchbook with me, and I'm so prepared to make this sketchbook the most cool travel sketchbook ever. But I'm so bad at it. I'm like most people. Like some people are really good at it. I'm so in awe of them, but I make like 5 drawings and like yeah, I'm like
It's like just
so
taking pictures.
yeah, it's just yeah. So no,
Yeah,
I wish
yeah.
I was.
But yeah, I'm sure people
Yeah.
would love to see it if you do more of the sketches. Maybe you can share it on Twitch or like Instagram stories.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do post some of them, but not all of them, because if all of a sudden it's a thing that I have to post, then it becomes a pressure, and then
Yeah.
I like it just to be mine and for fun and write down different things and stuff.
Yeah,
But
so
again, I'm not really good at keeping it.
but how do you then find the time for Instagram or keeping up with everything? Like, do you like do it like every 2 days, or do you set yourself special time, or just like when you remember?
No, I just wing it. It's like I don't really have a plan. I think the most of a plan that I have is that I tend not to post before 2, because of time difference. I have a lot of followers in the States. So I think if it's around 2 or later, it hits both ways. And so I think that's my main thing. Otherwise, it's just I had a time when it was a lot of pressure, and I felt like I had to post every day and I had to achieve something. But now it's just like a thing that I do for fun. And sometimes I don't post for a few days, and then right now I'm working on a quick post for Scully Mulder, because I've been watching X-Files. But it's more like, I see something and then I just I feel like drawing that, and like spend an hour doing it and posting it. It's fun.
Yeah, and did you think about it at the beginning, maybe like how you do layout? Like now I do, I don't know, face, then I do the full picture, or like now I take picture of my tools or something like that, or not at all?
No, not at all. It's kind of when you again, bringing it back to the one that I'm using now, I've thought it would be fun to have like a split screen. Like it's one color here and then it's all black here, because they have these shoulders.
Yeah.
And then just their head popping up. So that's what I'm working with. So I see that idea and then I want to draw it. So if I get something visual where I'm like, this is a cool pose, or this is a fun color, or
Yeah. Because what I meant was for Instagram feed, when you kind of trying to structure the posts, you know?
No. If you go in there, it's a big mess. I think what's working for the flow of it is that I have a very, I have a signature visual style. So just everything just goes together, because it's all like bright colors and flat colors when it's my drawing. Like it's all like within the same style.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And do you have maybe as well some other tips with developing the art style? How many years did it take you? Or, like some people can get impatient, like I need to have my art style.
Yeah, well, I did. I worked in that for a lot of time. Actually, it's, some of my talk was also about that, showing that when I went out from school, I was working at VFX. I did backgrounds. I did classical portraits. I did all these different things and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until one of my friends, his name is John Keen Mortensen. He's like also a famous artist, and he has a very unique style. He just started doodling ink doodles on Post-its. And now they're bigger, but it's the same style. And he was like, it wasn't until he just had something that he really liked to do and just went with it, that he started to get noticed for jobs because it was the same style. So when he said that, I was like, okay, so if I just draw, how does it look like? And it was very inspired by, of course, Disney and the Renaissance Disney Renaissance style, like Aladdin and Little Mermaid. So I just did that and just kept going with it. And as I mentioned before, every time I did saw something that was pretty cool, I implemented it into my style instead of like changing my style to them. I took what I liked from theirs and put it into mine. And then, slowly, if you go back to my earliest drawings, it's still the same, but just not as good. Like you can see there is like, it just keeps going. Progress and like how good I am, but it's still the same style. Yeah. So I just think it's something like what you really like. If you always draw, you can tell that from your style, from your drawing, and just be confident in it and just keep going with it, and it'll slowly find its own path. Yeah. So I've been working on it since I was like 5, I think, but not been aware of it until 6 years ago, I think.
Oh, perfect. And so, and how did you start getting the first jobs? Did you start with commissions, maybe from social media, or how did you do networking for the bigger clients afterwards?
Well, I worked in a gaming company, and when I was contacted first by my Mattel and then by Disney to do some small jobs, and I just did those in the evening. And then I got contacted by Warner Brothers while I was still working. So they found my stuff online and contacted me. And then I just ended up, working for them full time for 3 years. So I quit the other job and became a freelancer with Warner Brothers and taking in other clients. And then it's just been going slowly after that. In the beginning, people found I haven't applied for a job yet. I'm very fortunate. As a freelancer, I haven't applied. I've only been contacted. So in the beginning, people saw my stuff online, but now it's word of mouth. It's more like, we worked with her. She did something cool. You should check her out. So
because that's definitely much better than applying, because then they are hiring you for your style and they don't expect something else.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I really like. It's like, we like what you did with this. Can you do that over here too? And it's not like, people sometimes think it might be restraining, but it's not, because it's not like copy this. It's more like, we like the confidence in your line and the attitude you give to the characters. It's not like copy this. It's more like, we like the attitude that your characters have. Can you copy the attitude? And that's a fun challenge to do.
Definitely. So, because also then you know how your process looks like, what can you actually deliver within the time, what are the expressions and emotions and everything, right?
Yeah, and if people contact me because they saw something I did online, I usually ask them to point out which artwork made them contact me, because then it's very different. And it's oftentimes where like, oh, they probably contact me because of this drawing. And it's never the drawing that you think it is, because the ones that I like are not really the ones that people like. They tend not to like what I like. It's fun. Yeah. So that's a good way to, like, people contact you via something you did, ask them which it is and what they liked about it.
Yeah. Also maybe on the convention, right? Some artworks are more popular. Did you have the one which was sold out right away, or was it more balanced? I have every year I have one. I never expect it to be that one that's selling out. So it's fun to, like, that's what I like about putting your stuff out there is getting the feedback, and you're like, oh, they're gonna love this. I spent a week on this drawing and there's no really response to it, and then you do a quick drawing before you like head out in the evening, and it has a lot of like, so it's different what captures people's interests. And when you are working on the art pieces, and when you said like you do like specific like colors, maybe are you trying to differentiate the artworks also by color and the story, or like how do you plan your personal artworks, or is just what you see around you?
Well, I love experimenting, like for instance being like, okay, if her skin was green, like what could work with it? That's actually what I'm finding more fun by doing now. Like now it's really quickly do some kind of drawing because I want to get into the coloring and I don't want to use, regular skin tones. I want to use something different and pushing it. And okay, if I want to do this drawing in only 3 colors, how can it look? And trying to make it more designed, more fun. And it's not it's not compared to other drawings that I've done. It's more like the process right now that I'm enjoying.
Yeah, and you, as you mentioned, you have the art space, or you are sharing the studio with other artists, or it's like within your house?
I'm sharing with other artists. Yeah, I would go crazy at home. Yeah, no, I'm sitting in office with other people. Yeah.
Oh, that's really
So
cool.
it's
And do you also have something like a mastermind group, of like people you can bounce off ideas, like as you mentioned, the other artists, when you maybe meet once a week or something like that, or no?
No, actually not. It's one of those things that I'm really missing. I have a lot of friends here who are animators because I used to study animation. So those like good friends to talk movies with and stuff. But design people, I don't have a lot of them here locally, which is why I really enjoy going to, for instance, CTN Expo in LA, where I have made so many friends who are amazingly talented at what they do, and it's nice. Last time I was talking with the Beauvais sisters, like Lorelai and Nesa, and just sitting there and being like, okay, so when I do this squash thing, I can't solve this small problem. They're like, oh, we usually do this. So like bouncing the ideas with each other, with people who have similar interests and style is something I love going. So I wish I could be there more, for sure.
Yeah. You can always Skype with them, right? Or
Yes,
message.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, but everybody's always so busy. So
That's true. That's true. Yeah, because the mastermind or just average of your people around you then can influence your progress or everything, right?
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And how did you find the space to work with? Did someone like recommend you to like share the workspace or the studio or?
Well, where I'm sitting right now is a friend of mine who started it with his cousin. One is an architect and the other one is a graphic artist.
Yeah.
But I just found my own place that I'm starting next month, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Cool.
So that's pretty new. It's with an animator friend. It's gonna be just a bit closer to where I live than now, because I needed more space. I have a web shop and I need like more room for that, and I'm thinking about hiring somebody like an assistant to help me out with the web shop and with all the PR and stuff. So I needed room for her too. So we're starting up a whole new space together. We went to the same school, so I'm very excited about that.
Awesome. New adventure.
Yes, new adventure. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. And when you actually like kind of look back on your art career, is there something you would advise yourself, when you were young or something like that you wish you knew?
Yeah, well, take it easy. It's gonna work out. Like, I was always afraid that I wasn't good enough, and I didn't want to share my things until they were completely done. And then if somebody criticized them, I just didn't want to hear it. And that's what I learned from doing like 6 months of life drawing, was that show it as soon as you can to somebody else and take in the criticism that they have, because that's just gonna I started my process was like this, and then when I started asking people, it just did a big jump. So the sooner you get comfortable with showing your artwork and listening to what people have to say, because if you want to work in art, you're gonna have to deal with it whether you like it or not. You can't just sit with your own stuff until it's done and say, "Isn't it pretty?" You can't work like that. So the sooner you learn that, the better you'll be faster, and the easier you're going to be to work with as well. Yeah. So I think that would be my recommendation.
Yes, totally agree. And if you think about also the kind of difficult time, what would you consider the most difficult time? Because that's the time where we usually learn the most, and maybe you can share like key takeaway from the time.
Yeah. Well, when I left school, I went to London to do VFX because I thought I was going to be a 3D animator. And I worked at Double Negative, working on John Carter for about 6-7 months until I quit because it wasn't the right path for me. And after that, I didn't know what I was going to do. And that's when I had the whole, what style do I have? What do I want to do? Do I want to do portraits for museums, which was one of the job offers? Or do I want to do backgrounds for animation, or do I want to be an animator again? Or I had a lot of struggle figuring it out. So it wasn't until that, again, I found my path. I wanted to be a character designer. I wanted to work hard to be a character designer. So that was like a really hard task for me, I thought it was better to be an all-around artist. The more that I'd be able to do, the easier it would be to hire. but it also means that you don't really have something that's you, I think. And I thought I think actually I was harder to hire and easier to pay less because I could just draw. I didn't have a certain thing that I contributed with, which is what I do now.
Yeah.
So that was my hard time. That was, quitting a really good job that I was the one that I thought I wanted, and then not knowing what to do and struggling with that afterwards.
Yeah.
It was about a year that was searching.
So you figured out what you don't like, and then what would be your goal and what would help you to get there, right?
Yeah, it would probably be in one of those journeys normal people would have done during the actual school. I did it after school, so...
Better later than never, right?
Yes, that is true, yes.
And what about the future? What would be your dream scenario? In 5 to 10 years, you cannot fail, and this is how everything looks like.
Well, I would love to do a short, for instance. Like find some good friends and make a short together, and it's going to be hugely successful and redefine how you design. I don't know, but something like that, where you own it yourself, and it's a property that you have developed with somebody else. Also, this year I'm starting a comic book, the very first comic book I've ever done, which is big scary, which is going to be written by Kevin Smith, the movie director, and a guy called Eric Carasso, I think it's pronounced, who does scripts for Supergirl. And me, we're all working together on a comic.
Awesome.
So in 5 years, it's going to be a huge success. It's going to be great. So that's actually what I'm going to be working on now while, having jobs and stuff.
Oh, perfect.
So,
yeah. And you are planning to stay in Denmark, right?
Yes, for now. My boyfriend, who is an anthropologist, really wants to move away, and I'm fine with it. Like, I can work from wherever. So we have considered trying somewhere else. He wants to live either in East Africa or in LA, and I'm open to both as long as it's
different. They're a bit different.
They're a bit different, but as long as they're warmer and there's internet, I'm fine. That works.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it can be warmer a lot of places, right?
Yeah, Denmark is not warm, that's for sure.
Oh, perfect. And what about like super far in the future, like the epic question, like what would you like to be remembered for?
Well, I would like to be remembered for my art, like for my artwork, for my style. It would be awesome if, like, a lot of years from now, my book is still maybe not relevant, but it was like, oh, she did this book, and hopefully I've done more, so that people know me through my artwork and through projects that I've done. We all know different artists that were really like, this is the big one, so I'm not comparing myself to those at all, but we all know like what Mary Blair contributed to for Disney. Yeah. So if I had done something where people feel like I have inspired them to maybe pursue art or being animation or designing, and if my style has done something that they found inspiring. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, really nice.
Thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect. I'm looking forward to see all of your future projects and everything.
Me too now.
You're like, okay, this will happen. That's good.
Yeah.
And before we say goodbye, maybe you can share last piece of advice or key takeaway, and then we will slowly finish.
Well, it's hard work if you want to draw, but it's also fun and rewarding. So it's one of those, if you can't help doing it, you should do it, and keep getting inspired by other people, and don't be afraid to ask people. Everybody's so helpful and so willing to both inspire and bring. So it's a big community. So yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And thank you so much again for being here. It was so
You're
nice.
welcome. It was so much fun.
So thanks again, and thanks everyone who joined today, and see you in the next episode. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe because I post new videos every week. I would be also super happy if you let me know your thoughts in comments and give the video a thumbs up. You can find all the resources mentioned in this episode at artsideoflife.com. Just type a guest name in the search bar. There is also a couple of free artist resources ready for you. So if you want to listen to the interviews on the go too, make sure to check out the podcast at artsideoflife.com/podcast. Continue to inspire each other, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye!